In the case study, we discovered that there was a mainstreaming of the issue of climate change, but we felt there was a lack of general picture about climate change, the extreme weather events. There is a lack of historical data. She just referred to what is happening currently now. We need to know what's happened before in the past for us to better understand what is going on in the country. Then there are standalone examples. There are no interlinkages with the climate change and its impact on poverty and its impact on women.
Then about the poverty and natural disasters, we figured out that in the paper it was mentioned that due to the floods and the disasters there was lack of access to energy, and it had, of course, a huge impact also on poverty. And what came out that due to the bad weather, the transportation system didn't work. That's why many communities were closed down from water and for food as well. Then the capacity building is, of course, was mentioned, but we were thinking about it that it should have been stressed on institutional support as well and on different levels. In the paper it was mentioned that the rural population, so those who are living in the rural areas, they were much more impacted. Of course, because there was a distinction between those people who had the right resources to treat the disasters and those who did not. And we were also talking about the state budget allocation for disaster risk management, that it could have to be that more. And about
gender equality, we have found an abstract devoted to the gender in the case study on Tajikistan, and it was about the women that got additional burdens in accessing alternative fuel and waters providing adequate sanitation, and it was women who had to look after sick and elderly family members after the disaster. And another thing, it was unemployment issue. Women were first who lost their jobs because they are involved and engaged in light industry, like in bakery, factories, etc. And what wasn't mentioned, but we thought it would be up to date, like it's relevant to the topic, that due to those heavy burdens and that the number of tasks that women performed increased at the time. They probably had some health issues, health problems, and then there was information that a lot of women have drowned because they couldn't swim, and it's something like a cultural restriction. It's not. It's strange when women go in the rural area and swim somewhere. They normally don't do that, and because they don't know how to swim, a lot of them have drowned when there was a flood. And then it's supposed to be male. Yes, we thought that there had to be a difficulty connected with migration of males because of the disaster. They had to find new resources, a new where to find the income, and that's why women also were the first who had to look after households and like to support their families. Thank you.
and about the environment, sorry. In the case study, it was mentioned that there was a 5-month winter, and we figured out that, of course, it had a huge impact on the biodiversity because many plants were able to flower much later. It wasn't mentioned in the paper, and of course, we were thinking about the depletion of resources, and which can be very important, and also have implications to social issues in the waterborne diseases from floods. Thank you very much.
Okay, So this group described the situation. So we have a snapshot kind of all these main areas which we are looking at. Let's see now the second group, how they will present the action. Yeah.
I think on the first slide was like what was not covered, yeah?
Yes, the gaps.
Yeah, maybe if I am allowed to disagree, I think you mentioned something that the links between climate change and gender or something were not mentioned. But I think I found this case study where actually I thought the opposite, that it's very well discussed. Like for example, it mentions that due to climate change you have drought and then you have less agricultural productivity, and that's why men have to migrate to look for other jobs, and that impacts women. So just a small disagreement.
Okay. For example, we were criticizing on page 9. The second paragraph. While the government and the UNDP were taking measures, climate change slowly but surely is coming to Tajikistan. For instance, this year, winter lasted 5 months from November to March. Winter means normal winter with minus the centigrade snowfalls and icy roads. There was no reference to what it was in the past, so I don't know much about it.
It was a reference. I mentioned the abnormal cold winter of 2008. And there were 3 slides in my 3 points in my yesterday's presentation where there was this abnormal winter of 2008 when we had this compound disaster, and then this abnormal winter of 2011-12.
It's not in the paper. It's not in the paper.
I don't remember also each paragraph, but
So anyway, we have chosen this case study because it was, in our view, the best showing of these linkages. So if you found some additional things, that's an achievement. Okay, let's see group 2.
Group B. Youngsters.
The young and the rich.
Yes.
So who is presenting from group B?
Hi everyone. In continuation of the last presentation, we are also discussing about how Tajikistan started 3 projects to manage risks associated with these disasters. There were 3 programs which were started, as our colleague discussed them yesterday. The first one was community-based disaster risk management program, in which community was involved in teaching them how they can handle and mitigate the risk associated with these disasters. The second was national search and rescue capacity. It was when if a disaster has happened, then how to deal with the danger, like the result of that disaster, and how to rescue the people who will be impacted by that disaster. It was at national level, and volunteers were trained, and people were provided with resources like mobile phones and other such resources, so that they can react on time and provide rescue to the people who will be impacted. The third was flash floods and early warning systems. It was the third program offered by this initiative, and in which which there was no previous system of informing people that there is a risk of flood in some time. So it was a technological innovation in which flash flood identification system was introduced so that people can know that there will be a flood in such a time, so that people can manage accordingly. It was a very good system so that people can arrange their so that they can deal with that disaster in the due course. Some of the suggestions which we would like to suggest for these programs and for some other areas which were not covered here are presented further.
Okay, let me continue. So, as you were told, we are not going to smash all the criticism to present. We just want to add something that can be probably useful. So, we propose to map community resources. What does it mean? So it will be useful just to know if it's actually it exists demographical structure, ethnicity structure, gender status. It will be very useful to know how many people, what people are vulnerable, also women participation and children participation. So otherwise, due this some risk situation, we can, well, at least then calculate what was actually the impact, to what level it increased actually. Then we propose to create, to create emergency teams. Or maybe play simulation games with role playing. So what we advise, it was like some kind additional actions to prevention actions. So we will have simulation games with which will simulate some disaster or maybe some risk situations, and people by themselves will choose their role. So what they are going to do during the earthquake or other situations. So while it happens, no one is going to think what I'm going to do. Even a woman can take a man role. For example, she during this simulation game she will find out for herself what it will be like more suitable for her. Okay, now just wants to add something.
In relation to the simulation game, I think it happens very often in a disaster that there is chaos and no one really knows what to do and no one really knows which way to go. So with these games and the community counseling groups and also the monitoring mechanisms, we're hoping to achieve some sort of consensus among the people, or some sort of self-awareness of what I can do when something happens, which would translate into effectiveness when a disaster would actually, if it would happen. Concerning mainstreaming poverty, we would have poverty assessment at the community level, similar to the examples we had in yesterday's course lectures, asking and consulting the locals, getting indicators, getting feedback, getting information. So that way we would know that, for example, if flooding happens in a certain area, we would know that those houses are the ones that are more vulnerable with less income, or those who travel far to get a job, or this kind of information. So it would be easier at the local level and then regional and maybe national to come up with strategies to address certain areas in an environment which is prone to disasters. We also envision that rehabilitation and reconstruction process would, we didn't take this idea till the end, but it's possible to look into this and to find out how we would give bigger roles to youth, for example, in these processes, because it's their community in the end, and their role is very important. They would feel like part of it if they helped in the reconstruction process. Again, women can be a very good workforce or addition to. It's not just simply putting bricks and reconstructing a house, right? There's more to it. There's an entire social fabric, and participating in it, I think, would add a lot. expanding the national search and rescue capacity to regional and local units is again in the case study, or in the case of Tajikistan, we had something at a national level, but we believe that if this would be brought down to regional and local level, it would work better, because there would be more people engaged, better coordination. When a disaster strikes in a certain area, you already have a team prepared there, and you don't have to make phone calls or, I don't know, transport people from one side to the other, or aid, or other things like this. That's the same with the emergency units spread around the country. It would mean more mobility, more flexibility, sustainability in the long run, and it basically it's faster, more efficient, and perhaps even less costly.
Okay. They take an answer from their own places. Okay, you go ahead with the question.
I think if you look at the need for an integrated kind of approach, you may want to involve local and national institutions as well as all the stakeholders. So one action point that I think is very important is advocacy. Advocacy and network is something that the group did not mention. The reason is that you need to talk, you need to lobby, you need to make sure that people see your point and then they will come along with you. So advocacy and lobbying is one of the actions when I would recommend or suggest that.
But it was actually concentrated on poverty and gender issues, how we can add something of these issues to the existing measures they are already up.
Or not action point. I thought you were talking about action points.
No, there are already actions, and we just tried to add some poverty aspect and gender aspect to these actions. Yeah, because it was actually our task.
From the very beginning, there would be a mechanism of meeting people and knowing what the requirements would be, and assessments would be definitely there.
Okay, so can we proceed
Okay.
with group C, the third group, which has a very difficult task to come with indicators.
Thank you.
Very well.
You see, Matt doesn't even have to say a word, and he's already kind of.
We were talking about gender equality.
You see, it's kind of reverbs and growth. Previously it was opposite.
Yes, it was
So, as everybody knows, we were dealing and we're trying to address and create some kind of indicators that can that deal with these poverty and environmental issues, also climate change and gender balance. So, on poverty environmental issues, what we thought that it might be useful, or how we can measure. So, our decision was number of poverty environmental linkages adopted in district and national documents that can address. Afterwards, number of population trained on proper usage on land, because sometimes a lot of environmental problems cause due to lack of trainings, because people don't really know how to use that land properly, and then the deforestation and making gardens in the slopes of mountains, etc. Afterwards goes also trained number of population or share of population trained on proper usage of existing infrastructure. It can be simple infrastructure that nearly any villager can do, but it's simply that he or she doesn't know. So it's also, we thought that it's important. Afterwards also comes a number of green projects implemented in local level or national level, regional level, depending on the scope, and of course number of or share of local and national institutions engaged in implementing projects, and of course their power, what they have in terms of implementing the projects on public and environmental issues.
Okay, now for climate change. Here are our indicators. First one is number of CO low emissions technologies used, which if we use technologies to make lower these emissions. Number of energy efficiency, number of people affected by natural disasters, and share of green energy or clean energy of people in the poverty as a result of. And
also on on CO2 emissions, what we can actually extract from previous formulas, so it's energy per service, how we can reduce, what technologies of low emission we can use, and also in this we somehow maybe dismissed, and it was number of energy efficiency, it was energy in terms of GDP efficiency. And
Gender will be presenting the gender issues.
Well, we selected 3 indicators amongst the many we had in our mind. And the first one is about the number of measures addressing gender-related issues. So this is a mainstream indicators, how gender is being included in measures that are being taken in order to prevent disasters or so.
And I'll be going into details here a little bit, because in times of disaster, let's imagine that people left homeless and they live in the tents, and of course they're provided by international organizations, by local organizations with these hygiene kits. And here we need to address the issue of different hygiene kits for men and for women, because women need, as already been said, more care than men. So we decided to add this indicator in terms of these gender issues to be addressed in times of disaster.
Then, in order to measure how gender issues are being considered into this project, we decided to use the share of men and female training on disaster preparedness, just in order to see if women are participating, and therefore if they will have the knowledge and the skills which are needed in order to respond in case, or to prevent disaster, or respond to disaster in case they happens, because there is also an issue with how women are involved in this kind of project, since it seemed to me to understand that there is some kind of gender issue in this. And then we have got proportion of women in representation bodies with this, which is also an indicator supposed to give us a flavor on how women are participating in decision making relating to disaster preparedness projects and the like, so that their view can be somehow mainstreamed within the process and within the selection of project, and that their view are taken into due consideration.
game we played during the first day, and you can see all the photos.
Because next is the Slovak rock band.
All the photos from rock concerts just on the wall.
Effective, yeah. Thank you very much. I think all the groups did a great job, and some of the indicators I would even use next time in the project. Like, for example, number of local and national institutions engaged. I think it's very good.
I think they have the best gender balance in the group. We have the best gender balance in the group. Out of 4 men, we have 2, so we can come up with a